All right. Well, thank you for clicking on this video. This will be the lecture for the Big Business and Industrialization unit. Let's see if I can get this slide deck pulled up. So I'm going to try to move through this as quickly as possible. Obviously, if you have any questions, meet me in open Zoom or send those questions to me. Preferably through Google Voice Text, and I'll try to get them taken care of. But I want to move through this, like I said, as quickly as possible so that we don't draw this video out for too long. I may break it up into two segments, so if I do that, make sure you watch all of the segments available, whether it be just this 1, 2, or possibly even 3. All right, so let's get moving. Basically, the period we're looking at is roughly beginning of the Civil War to the first couple decades of the 20th century, 1860 to 1920. Of course, just like every other period in history, not just U.S. history, but in history in general, there's some overlap, right? In some bleed over into it's hard to define beginnings and ends of these periods, but for the most part, we're looking at 1860 to 1920. So what are the foundations for the type of economic growth? And I'm going to pull myself hopefully off the screen here. Let me see if I can do that. Hopefully you can see around me here. I apologize for that. Still getting used to this screencasting software. But so what are the foundations that kind of set the United States up for the incredible economic growth, industrial growth that happens? Really, I always call it industrial explosion that happens during this period, right? This is the period that will catapult the United States into really a world leader industrially, economically, and eventually militarily and politically. First off, the United States is just blessed with an abundance of natural resources, particularly during this period that we're talking about, when the population is nowhere near what it is obviously today. So abundant natural resources, almost unlimited. At the time, it would have been thought to be unlimited natural resources. The type of system really that our founders built this country on, right? An economic system based in capitalism, the market economy, where government is going to kind of stand back and let the market do its work. Social Darwinism, really important during this period. The belief amongst the industrial leaders, guys like J.D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, that they were uniquely positioned, right, almost born to be in the position of economic leadership, right? This belief that they were destined to be in this position led them, I think, to take the kinds of risk that were necessary to increase the size of their wealth and their companies and the economy as a whole of the United States so rapidly. And again, as I was mentioning before, and again, if I'm covering up some of this, I apologize. I'm not quite sure how this is going to look in the final rendering. But the role of government, right? This laissez-faire attitude, right? Very important term, laissez-faire or laissez-faire capitalism, where the government takes a hands-off approach to the economy. Now, this is relative, right? Government will get involved to an increasing degree over this period, really reacting to situations that arise because of this growth, whether they be urban issues, labor issues, economic fairness issues, and so forth. The patent system, the fact that the United States had this system in place where inventors, innovators knew that they could profit from their inventions, and without their inventions or their innovations being stolen by someone else, and that cannot be overstated. The importance of the patent system. It gives It gives inventors a reason to want to keep doing what they're doing. Protective tariffs. This is almost the opposite of laissez-faire, right? This is government intervention. And this eventually comes into play, right? Where American industries will be protected from competition with cheaper products from abroad, right? Tariffs, of course, are taxes on imports. So protective tariffs are tariffs placed on imports with the goal of protecting a domestic industry. For instance, steel. If U.S. steel is priced at $2 a pound and European steel, French steel, let's say, is priced at $1.50 a pound, obviously the $1.50 a pound is much more attractive to industries that need steel than $2. And so the government would impose a minimum of 50 cents per pound tariff, right, to level the playing field, so to speak, to make U.S. steel more attractive. Land policies, right, westward expansion, the government making land available to settlers in the West and to railroad companies to build the infrastructure necessary on which to build the necessary infrastructure for this industry to continue to grow. All right, let's move forward here. Sorry, I'm going to move forward a few slides. Okay, at the very end of that last slide, I had a kind of a catch-all, right? Other business-friendly legislation. So things like laws protecting private property, laws dealing with contracts, the regulation and standardization of currency and banking is incredibly important. Never before was it so necessary to have a standardized currency system and national banking regulations in place to protect industries now that would be stretching across the nation and then eventually internationally. Next is the legacy of the first industrial revolution, right? The fact that the United States had taken Britain's lead in beginning industrialization at an earlier place, the beginning of the factory and things like that, which kind of laid the groundwork for increased industrialization here in this, what we call sometimes the second industrial revolution. Just timing, right? Timing's everything. Economic stimulus provided by the Civil War. So the Civil War creates an incredible demand. Any war creates incredible demand for industrial products, whether they be weapons, ammunition, uniforms, boots, and someone's got to make that stuff, right? And so the stimulus provided by the war will have carryover after the war. The fact that the industrial North was victorious in the war and most of the economic damage is done to the South allows that industry in the North to continue to steam on once the war is over. Profits during the war being reinvested into these industries, and Congress dominated by Northerners during the war, leading to industry or industrial laws that are favorable to industrialists and to dealing with the economy is really important. So innovation and invention. What's the difference? Kind of mixing some words here, right? When we talk about invention, we normally think of a product, right? A product that's invented, something to deal with a problem, a new product like the phone or staplers or the computer, whatever the case may be. Innovation, or in this context, we would refer to as the improvement upon an earlier invention or the improvement in a process. Okay, so for instance, I use the example here on the screen of steam engines. The steam engine would be an invention. The innovation would be using that steam engine to drive mechanized factories. Okay, a small difference, but an important difference, I think, at least to understand. All right, some more things kind of that lead to or make kind of aid in this industrial growth. Between 1860 and 1920, the United States will see its population triple. That's crazy. That's an amazing amount of growth. Imagine that happening today. It would be impossible to sustain that number of people in the United States. But that's exactly what happens between 1860 and 1920. That's an increase brought on by largely by immigration. Of course, there's some natural increase as well, but immigration is driving this population growth, and that's going to provide workers for industry. It's going to provide new markets, consumer markets. So the railroads bringing the existence of a national market and this interdependence that we talked about when we were in the westward expansion unit. All of these things are kind of building the framework or the infrastructure for which this second industrial revolution will be built. Okay? And as it's built, we will see a whole host of new business practices coming into play. I've got about 3 more minutes allowed on this 15-minute limit video, so I'm going to see what I can get in here in those 15 minutes. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and stop it right now, and I'll restart this thing with part 2 and new business practices.